Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she mentions that one night the Prophet ﷺ was not in the bed next to her. And she said, I started looking for him. And of course, because it was dark, she said, I started moving my hand around. So she said, I ended up with my hand on his foot, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and his foot was upright, meaning he was in a place of sajda. And I heard the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying, أعوذ برضاك من سخطك وبمعافاتك من عقوبتك وأعوذ بك منك لا أحصي ثناء عليك أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك. The very famous dua that we should make every single night. I seek refuge in your pleasure from your anger. And I seek refuge in your forgiveness from your punishment. And I seek refuge in you from you. And I cannot praise you as you have praised yourself. Meaning my praise is always going to be insufficient, and your praise for yourself will always be greater, O Allah. This was the Prophet ﷺ in his sajda, and there are narrations that are so remarkably consistent about his du'as inside the house and outside the house. And this is particularly where you find the Sahaba mentioning the Prophet ﷺ one time in sujood for so long that they thought he was dead. How long would you have to be in prostration, and how still would you have to be for people to think that you were dead? And that was the case of the Prophet ﷺ. And when they asked the Prophet ﷺ what had happened as he raised his head, Rasulullah ﷺ was crying. And Jibreel alayhi salam came to the Prophet ﷺ and he asked the Prophet ﷺ, Allah has sent me to you to see why you are crying. And the Prophet ﷺ was crying for what? Ummati, ummati, my ummah, my ummah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends Jibreel alayhi salam to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam to tell him, سَنُرْضِيكَ فِي أُمَّتِكَ, we will please you with your ummah, وَلَا نَسُؤُكَ, and we will not disappoint you with your ummah. That's him on the outside of his house sallallahu alayhi wasallam. On the inside, Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha says, I one time saw him standing up and repeating the same verse over and over and over again. He prayed the entire night with that one verse that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam would spend the whole night reciting, إِن تُعَذِّبْهُمْ فَإِنَّهُمْ عِبَادُكَ وَإِن تَغْفِرْ لَهُمْ فَإِنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. If you punish them, they are your slaves.